Welcome back to Ministry Monday. And those of you who watched last week's episode are going to realize that I'm in the same room, in the same classroom, just outside of Phoenix. And I actually needed to record several of these in one setting. I have a busy schedule over the next 3 weeks. So again, lighting's not perfect and a whole lot of other things. I began talking with you last week about preaching to the lost and coming to an idea in your thinking of Sunday being for sinners, and that being a default setting. Now, if God directed me to preach something else, I was obviously going to follow what I felt was the leading of the Spirit. But my default setting was to prepare to preach to the lost. I struggled when I was evangelizing. We did this for 7+ years. I struggled with a mindset that is so messed up. My mindset was that, and I preached in a lot of very small churches, 15, 20, 40, sometimes less than 15. In those churches, if there were 39 saved people and one lost person, it was my inclination as a foolish young evangelist to feel that preaching to the 39 was more important than reaching for that one who was unsaved. Well, that's foolish because it runs totally contrary to what Jesus taught about the 100 sheep, 99 being in the fold, one that had wandered away, and the shepherd giving attention to the one who was not in a safe place. And as I begin to think about different people and their approach to reaching the lost, I came to recognize Christ came to redeem. He left us a ministry of reconciliation to bring people into a position where that they can step into a right relationship with God. Okay, that's of paramount importance to God. That's why he came. He came to seek and to save that which was lost. And he left us a responsibility to follow in his footsteps in accomplishing these things on his behalf. Many struggle with this particular idea. I remember listening to Billy Cole teach about preaching to the lost, and he made a startling statement, one that I've not always been able to apply. Matter of fact, not able to apply most of the time. And that is that when you're preaching to the lost, you should preach about 12 minutes. Well, I can do it in 20, 25 minutes perhaps. Most of the time, I can't get it down to 12 minutes, although I'm sure that I could work and condense. But I did get from him that it's important to get to the point, to go straight forward to the reaching of the lost, to go straight to the point of impact and not repeat it. When you begin to think about Simon Peter's preaching on the day of Pentecost, he did not rehash his message 3 times. He didn't have these 3 different approaches to declaring the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ. Instead, he went straight to the point of their need of God. And that's much of what Brother Cole was talking about, is that we need to be straightforward in this. We struggle, number one, because evangelistic preaching should be shorter. The second thing is that if I'm preaching a 12 or 15 or 25-minute message, it's very difficult for me to show you how brilliant I am, how God has given me these astounding revelations of his greatness and wonderful truths that, no, it doesn't work that way. Preaching to the lost is declaring a simple message. It's being a missionary, because the people we're touching, people we're reaching for, they're coming to God just like people who know nothing about Christ, who are in India or who are in some other remote part of the world, who have not had the opportunity to be where there is Christian preaching. Okay, we're in that kind of culture in North America these days. So we have to simplify. Well, simplifying does not allow me to show you how great I am. And then thirdly, there have been times when I'm sure I've been guilty of being enamored with the sound of my own voice. And I'd hate for my voice and my sermon to get in the way of God's message to somebody who desperately needed salvation. Everything that I'm sharing with you comes almost straight from a book I wrote on preaching to the lost called Masterful Preaching. It's not because I'm a masterful preacher, but I just believe that we need to have more of the master in our preaching. It is to preach Christ, to preach Christ. Now, the apostle said Christ and him crucified. If we can start out with just preach Christ, Christ as the solution, Christ as the remedy, Christ as the hope bringer. There are people who will sit there Sunday who that's what they need to hear is a simple, not profound, a simple message of hope that can transform their life from the disaster it is. I want to challenge you. I'll keep hitting this. Explore it, try it. Do this for 6 months. Sunday is for sinners. We'll keep talking about it next week. God bless.